Okay, so I think we can go ahead and start. Thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm Maria Fernandez Vidal. I lead CGAP's work on data, where we've been looking at the role that data can play to help advance financial inclusion. You'll also be hearing from my colleagues Ivo Yannick and Narisha Salman today. So I'll just share a little bit on our agenda. We'll be talking about open finance and the exciting developments in Brazil. First, we'll share some learnings from a recent study we did. Ivo will provide some background and context on open finance implementation in Brazil. I will then share some insights from our customer research, and Arisha will present on our supply side research. And then for the second half of the webinar, we will have a panel discussion with speakers representing key stakeholders of open finance. So we have Mateus Brauer from the Central Bank of Brazil, Luana Sorato from PicPay, Paulo Barbosa from Itaú, and Gustavo Bressler from Iniciador. Just want everyone to be aware that the webinar will be recorded and it will be made available on CGAP's website. If you have any questions or comments, please use the chat. We'll try to answer questions on the chat, and then for the panelists, we will also be monitoring your questions from there to then post to them at the end of the panel. Thank you. Over to you, Ivo, now.
Thank you, Maria, and welcome everyone. It's a great pleasure to see so many familiar names. It almost feels like a big family and friends gathering. So welcome. I have the honor to kind of set the scene for the webinar and introduce a little bit of background against which results of the study will be presented, and then the discussion will happen. So I will start by just showing some numbers about the success that open finance has been in Brazil. And that even applies when compared to markets that have been implementing open finance or open banking for a longer period of time. With 27 million and probably more open finance users and 41 million accounts connected through open finance, Brazil is really leading globally in open finance implementation when we look at how much it translates into the percentage of adult population included and using open finance. And that applies even when compared to the UK, which I think is traditionally seen as the leader in the concept of open banking. And it does apply comparing to India, which is one of the leaders in digital public infrastructure and promoter of the concept of account aggregators as a sort of open finance regime. And this is not only because the open finance has been implemented on its own, but I would say precisely because it's been implemented as part of a bigger vision that the central bank in Brazil have been promoting, most recently through the so-called Agenda BC hashtag, where open finance falls under one of the categories with labeled as competition, with many other initiatives in place. And that is the point of the next slide. So when you look at the left side and you see the timeline, which starts in 2002, you can clearly see that open finance is not coming out of nowhere. It's just one out of many initiatives that the central bank and other policymakers in Brazil have been putting in place to develop the financial sector and to promote innovation with initial project or initiative to modernize payment systems, retail payment systems in 2002, followed by a legal and regulatory reform, and then promotion of digital accounts. And later in 2017, 18 and on, initiatives to support fintech and innovation, things such as the initiative LIFT and regulatory sandbox. And then, of course, in 2020, the implementation of fast payment systems, PIX, which has experienced or has been very successful. And now in Brazil, a large portion of population is using PIX on a regular basis. So on the top of all of that, open finance has been introduced and started being implemented in 2021, which is the timeline on the right side of your screen, where you see that in February 2021, the large financial institutions, large banks that were mandated joined the open finance regime. But sooner we see so-called voluntary participants joining the open finance regimes, including some of the large fintech players such as Mercado Pago or NuBank. Open finance in Brazil has been proceeding across multiple phases, which is not surprising because open finance is a complex exercise, and we generally think that it's a reasonable approach to proceed through phases that give people enough time to adjust and implement all the necessary technology and procedures needed for compliance and successful implementation. So in Brazil, we talk about 4 different phases. Phase number 1 was focused on non-personal data concerning financial services and products. And it was followed very quickly by phase number 2, which included personal data such as registration, transactional, credit card, and credit operation data of individual users. And then later on the same year, the phase 3 started to be implemented, and that implementation of phase 3 has been spread out across multiple years, with an important component implemented relatively recently, which is the payment initiation service, allowing people to use open finance to make payments. And now we are in phase number 4, which is really the phase where open finance is becoming reality, with now investment related data being part of the open finance regime, and very soon insurance and pensions becoming part of the system. I just very quickly go through some of the data that kind of shows where the open finance is and what are the early signs of success. We've seen providers expanding credit limits significantly, in one case by 700 million reais. We've seen providers using open finance data to get better understanding of customers' financial situation, thus having positive impact on access to credit. Here we see 25 to 30% more visibility into customers' financial situation. We've also seen providers using it for better targeting. Here, 8 times better and more effective targeting and product offering, which arguably translates to a better acquisition cost. So these are some of the effects on the supply side, and we expect them to eventually translate into better financial services and products, therefore better outcomes for the demand side for the customers. And this is, in a way, conditional on how the uptake of open finance is and will continue to grow. So far, the trend is very positive, with growth both in individual and firm segment steadily going up. We'll see whether that growth continues or whether it speeds up or whether it flattens at some point. But so far, the indication is definitely upwards. And then finally, while there is a very positive uptake and early signs of success, there are challenges that still remain around data quality, but also around what we call constant conversion rates. And that is how many of customers who try to give a consent to open finance eventually end up giving a consent and completing the process. And you see that the numbers are lower for large banks as compared to large fintechs. So what you basically see is how many of customers out of 100 successfully completed the consent giving process. There may be many reasons for relatively low conversion rates. It could be the technological failures. It could be also challenges around complexity of that process, interfaces that change throughout the process because of redirection. It could be also because of low awareness or limited trust so far. So against this backdrop, I hand it over to Maria to give insights from our customer research.
Thank you, Ivo. Let me see if I can take control of the slides. Okay, so I'll share a little bit on the customer research we did to inform our work. So basically, we did a nationally representative survey of 2,000 adults with the objective of understanding kind of at this early stage of the implementation, are people ready to participate on open finance? Are they aware? Are they willing to share data and the adoption rates that we see? And our goal is to repeat this survey in the future to be able to kind of track how this evolves over time. Ivo, I don't think I can change the slide. Let me see. Okay, yeah, I think that worked. So the first thing we looked at is readiness. So basically, if people want to participate in open finance, can they participate? So to participate in open finance, you need to have a bank account that you're able to share that data from. So what we see is account ownership in Brazil is very high. 96% of people responding that they had an account. And while this is a little bit lower for the lower income classes, it is still very high for everyone across the board. So it goes from 96% to 92% when we look at the D and E class, which in Brazil, basically segmentation is A, B, C, D, just E goes from higher income to lower income. But it's still, again, in that segment quite high. And the majority of people have more than one bank account. So the next thing we looked at is if people were using those accounts, because basically for the data to be valuable, the people not only have to have an account, but there needs to be transactional information there. Again, we found very high usage across a wide range of financial services, with PIX being the most used transaction. And 77% of users said that they used 4 or more services. So again, a variety of use across the board. In terms of what are those accounts, 89% of people had an account with a traditional bank. 51% of people in our sample had an account with a digital bank. And you can see in the slide which those banks were for our sample. And then we also asked them what bank they consider to be their main bank. And there's 71% of people considered a traditional bank their primary bank, and 29% of people considered a digital bank their primary bank. We also looked at smartphone ownership, because the way the open finance journey is designed in Brazil, it is primarily designed to be used from kind of your banking app on your smartphone. And again, very high smartphone ownership across the board, 98%, but also in the low income segments, which is what CGAP cares the most about, 96%. So high level of readiness in that sense. And finally, we looked at mobile banking, like I said, because that's how most people are coming into open finance. And there we see, again, high usage, most people using open finance. And I don't know if you, maybe you should control the slides, because I think I don't think this is working well.
Sorry, yeah, go ahead. I think I know what the problem is, so you just go ahead. You control the slides.
Let me get back to, okay. Okay, so here we're just looking at like mobile banking and what's the frequency of use. So we see that most people use it. There's just 6% of people said they didn't use mobile banking. And we see that a very high percentage of people use it every day. So 45% of people using it every day. We see, again, across the classes, we see a higher use in the high income, but 90% of low income people using mobile banking. So just to sum up, in terms of readiness, people have accounts, they use them regularly, they have smartphones, they use their mobile banking app. So in that sense, Brazil scores really high in terms of the ability of people to participate in open finance. So the second thing we looked at is awareness and understanding of open finance. And here we asked people, and 48% of people were aware of open finance. And I mean, the number we think is pretty good, considering that this is a nationally representative survey. About 2% of people were aware but didn't know what it was. And then in terms of the terms open banking and open finance, majority of people that knew about it knew about both terms, and more people were a little bit more familiar with the term open banking than open finance. Of the people that were not aware of the term, we explained to them what it was, and then 27% of people were actually aware of open finance. They just didn't know the name, but they were aware of an initiative to share data. So when we put this percentage together with the other one, we do have that the majority of the population is already aware of this. And again, for something that is a new and a new term, a new development in the country, but also internationally, we think this is a good result at this point in the implementation. I won't go through all of these numbers, but we will be posting this deck and the webinars recording in our website tomorrow. So if you want to have another look at these numbers, they'll be there. But basically, we looked at all of these things by different segmentations to see what was happening. And what we see is a little bit lower adoption for women than men, for the awareness for women than men, for the lower income segments, the less educated, and younger people. When we asked people how they found out about open finance, the bank is the main source of information, mostly through the app. Some people also through the bank's website or the bank branch, but primarily through the app. And then different sorts of news online, offline, social media, friends and family. The next thing we looked at is willingness to share data. So here we asked people if they would be willing to share financial data in exchange for benefits. And as an example of benefits, we mentioned a better credit card limit or a better loan, because that is what we found is one of the major things that people are joining for. So at this point, 27% of people said they would be willing to share data in exchange of benefits. And this may look low, but again, this is very new. So we think as open finance becomes more mainstream, more people join, there's more examples of people having a positive experience, this willingness to share will grow over time. We also looked at this by segments. We see something similar around gender and income, where women and lower income customers are less likely to be willing to share. Then in terms of age, we see something different than what we saw in awareness, which is basically younger people being more willing to share, less risk averse, and that lowering as we get to the older segments. The next thing that we looked at is adoption. So from our sample, 11% of respondents said they had joined open finance. A few of them weren't sure if they had joined or not. And to compare, at the time we did the study, it was in July, about 14% of the adult population had joined. This is not necessarily going to match that number because this is nationally representative. The 14% probably includes a bit more of the high income population. So when we look at the segmentation for adoption, it's important to understand that we are really looking at early adopters at this point. This is the first kind of 10% of people that joined. So we looked at this by different regions. And interesting enough, we did see a big difference in awareness, for example, between the North and the South, but that has not translated in a difference in adoption. The adoption is very similar across the regions. They're all within 2 percentage points of each other. So at least at this point at the early adoption, there's it's similar, something to monitor as that adoption number grows. When we looked at income and education, we do see quite a big difference with higher income and college educated people have been much more likely to have adopted open finance so far. And again, this is not something that's surprising when we're talking about just the first 10% early adopters, but it is something to monitor as the implementation grows. Is that gap closing, or is there something additional that needs to be done to kind of bring on people, less educated, lower income people onto the system? Then finally, gender and age. Men in our sample were twice as likely than women to have adopted open finance. Again, something to monitor as this number grows. Does the gender gap close, or is there a specific outreach that needs to be done for women? At this point in the early adopters, we do see men much more represented there. And in terms of age, the 25 to 35 group being the most likely to adopt, followed by the segment below and above it, and seeing a much lower adoptions in the over 45 segment. Then finally, we saw adoption higher for people that were more active users of digital channels. And this makes sense. That's how people are joining. So we see a much higher adoption on people that have more than one bank account compared to those that just have one. We see a much higher adoption on people that are high frequency users of mobile banking when compared to those that use it less frequently. And then we also see a higher adoption for people who have a digital bank as their primary bank. Then we asked people about their motivation. So for those that had adopted open finance, what was their motivation to join? And here we see basically benefits around credit as the key factor. Either the higher credit card limits, which is the main one, or just having a better terms on a loan. 80% of people that joined was because of that. And then the second one, which is related to the personal finance management use case, is just convenience to have your account centralized, to be able to have a better view of your finances. Those are the main reasons people reported. We also asked those that had not joined why they had not joined. And there, the primary reason really was just lack of awareness. As we saw in the beginning, about half of the people were not aware. So of the people that didn't join, that was the main reason. This is positive because lack of awareness is much easier to tackle than other issues around trust and safety. Those also came up. 13% of people mentioned this. So that's something that as the implementation evolves, it becomes more mainstream. We hope that it would come down. And then we also asked people that had not joined whether they intended to join in the future. So for people that were aware of open finance, 47% of people intended to join. For people that had not been aware before the survey and where we explained what it was, 26% of people said they would join in the future. So mainly what seemed to be driving was just how well they understood. If you're not very familiar with something, if you don't understand it very well, you're less likely to want to join. We asked people how well they understood open finance, and that correlated very much with their likeliness to join. So people that understood it very well, said 41% people said they wanted to join. Those that didn't understand it well were much lower at 15%. So really, again, pointing to awareness and understanding of the concept as it grows, more people join, something that would help bring others on board. Then finally, we also did some qualitative research deep dive interviews with 30 people to understand some of these reasons a little bit better. This is not nationally representative. It cannot be done with 40 people, but we did choose people with different income levels, a 50-50 male-female breakdown to kind of similarly match the population. And I'll just briefly share some of the main things that came up from that. In terms of barriers to adoption, just understanding, it's a new thing. So understanding the concept, it's a technical term. What does it mean? That was one of the main barriers, people just not being as familiar or fully feeling that they're understanding what they were joining or what they would be committing to. The second thing was just fears associated with sharing data. So their data could end up in the dark web, it could get stolen, it could be misused, and especially in the context of this being new. So it hasn't been proven that the data necessarily is safe. So some people are just kind of waiting and seeing to see if this is safe. And then finally, fear of negative impact from sharing that data. And this came from people that had financial challenges in the past, many related to losing their job during COVID, not repaying a loan, being late. So basically, they didn't want to share data, felt they could hurt their relationship with other banks with whom they had not had those issues. So it's understandable. In terms of enablers of adoption, definitely the possibility to benefit, especially around better products, better credit, and the possibility to kind of speed up that access. So normally when people first start working with a bank, they get a very low credit card limit, and over time that increases. So the perception that through open banking, that time that it takes to get to a higher credit limit or a better relationship with the bank could be cut down. Second thing that came up strongly as positive is people having the ability to opt out. Basically, if they share data and the experience is not good, they can stop sharing. So that for people that were curious, knowing that if they tested this out and it didn't work well for them, they could get out of it, was an incentive to try it out, kind of a lower risk way to try it out. And finally, information. So a lot of people that had joined mentioned having watched videos that explain the process very well. So people, similar to what we found in the quantitative analysis, people that were able to understand this well, trusted it more and saw that as a positive experience. So I'll stop here on our customer research, and I'll give it over to Arisha.
I just requested control. Okay, great. Thanks, Maria. Thanks, Ivo. And thanks everyone for joining. I am going to go through some of our insights from provider research that we conducted as part of our overall study in Brazil. One moment, yeah. So to start with, we looked at the use cases that are emerging that leverage open finance the ecosystem. And these use cases have been expanding. They largely cater to individuals at the moment. And some of the prominent ones that have emerged are personal finance management, which allows individuals to track and control their finances more efficiently by giving them a complete view of their income, expenses, budgets, financial targets, and other relevant information. The other key use case has been on personalized offers, especially for credit, where a financial institution looks at all the accounts of individuals and understands their behavior based on their spend, their income, and tailors offerings to them, especially credit offerings, which expands the variables and the metrics that are used in credit risk assessment. Another one that's emerging, and we'll just show a specific example of that, is on account onboarding, where individuals are able to open accounts using some of the KYC data that they've already entered with another financial institution. So of course, the KYC process is completed by the new financial institution as well, but they don't have to enter this data manually. It makes the process more efficient. It makes it more seamless. Other use cases are on payments or to others using funds from other accounts, which is being carried out through payment initiators, which are a new set of institutions, and deposits between accounts of the same user via open finance. So if I have an account with one bank, I can make a deposit in another using open finance. And finally, on business finance management, we see that overall the number of consents for businesses are much lower. It's a small fraction of the total consents, so the number of accounts connected. But when we speak to providers in Brazil, this is something that is on their radar, and they are going to be developing a number of products based on that. Looking specifically at some of the products that have been developed, yes. So these are specific examples of some of the large players. For example, Bradesco developing a PFM, or personal finance management solution. Mercado Pago has, which is connected with Mercado Libre, which is Latin America's largest e-commerce platform, allows account holders to complete their purchases with the option of using open finance to finalize the transaction or to pay using other accounts. Another one is Banco do Brasil's WhatsApp compatibility, which is a virtual assistant that helps account holders to go through the open finance process of opening an account, of sharing their data, providing consent. So it's sort of an assisted journey through a virtual assistant. The CGAP smart onboarding solution is what I was speaking about earlier on account onboarding. We haven't seen too many of these come up in Brazil, but it is really a solution that's easy to develop, and it's very user friendly. So overall, we should expect more account onboarding or smart onboarding solutions coming up. There is also NuBank's overdraft protection, which is a very inclusive solution because it helps account holders look at all their balances at one place, on their NuBank app, and prompts them in case there's an overdraft and helps them avoid that overdraft fee. And another one we've covered here is PicPay's PFM solution, which is similar to Bradesco's, which provides a summary of income and expenses. A lot of providers we've spoken with are also now looking at taking these solutions, these PFM solutions, further and providing more advisory based on the data they gather through open finance. So these solutions are a view. It's a subsegment. There are several that are coming up, and we only envision more innovation taking place in this space. To give you a summary of where most innovation or most applicability of open finance data lies, personal finance management is clearly one of the dominant ones, along with personalized offers. As you can see here, most S1 and S2 as well as S3 to S5 institutions are offering this, but account onboarding is still not something that's been developed by more players, but we should see traction there. There are other solutions coming up, as you can see, on business finance management, but we can expect a lot more innovation, and we can expect a lot more green ticks on the boxes below as we go through more phases of open finance, or the phases expand. That brings us to the end of our presentation, and now I'd like to hand it over to Maria, because we have a very exciting panel from Brazil, and they would be sharing their insights on this. So over to you, Maria.
Thank you. So let me introduce our panelists first. Thank you to all of you for being here. So we have Mateus Raver, who is a senior advisor in the Financial System Regulation Department at the Central Bank of Brazil. He's part of the team responsible for the implementation of Open Finance. We have Luana Sorato, who's the head of product at PicPay, which is one of the largest fintechs in Brazil, and she's leading the implementation of Open Finance use cases. She's also a coordinator of the Open Finance Committee at AB Fintechs. We have Paulo Barbosa, who's the manager for regulatory relationships and innovation at Itaú, one of the largest banks in Brazil. He covers open finance as well as other related topics like PIX. And finally, we have Gustavo Bressler, who is the chief operating officer at Iniciador, white-level technology payments platform. He is also an advisor for CGAP on the topic of open finance. So thank you to all of you for joining us today. Let me start. So before we start, if you have any questions for our panelists, please put them on the chat. I'll start with some questions, and then Eva will take over and post some of your questions to them too. So please share in the chat. I'll start with a question for Mateus. Just wanted to get your thoughts on what do you think have been the key enablers for the successful implementation of open finance? And if you can talk a little bit about the role of the central bank in kind of creating that enabling environment.
Well, good morning to everybody, and afternoon perhaps, good night to some. First, I would like to thank CGAP for doing this study. It helped us to see where we are doing well and where we can improve, and also for promoting this webinar, allowing us to share the Brazilian experience. It is also a great pleasure to share this panel with Luana, Gustavo, and Paulo, who are playing key roles in the implementation of open finance here in Brazil. Regarding the question, there are some key enablers of the successful implementation of open finance in Brazil. The first one that I would like to highlight is the high degree of digitalization of the Brazilian financial system. Our financial and payment institutions, they have advanced IT infrastructures, and also our population is prone to be early adopters of innovation. I think all of these are factors that help with our successful implementation. Another important aspect, in my opinion, is the fact that our model was regulation-driven from the start. I firmly believe that implementing an open finance model requires the regulator leading the process, making demands when necessary, and constantly following the progress of the ecosystem. And we do this by being present in almost all of the technical groups created to discuss open finance in Brazil, part of the governance structure.
Thank you. Let me move on to other participants. I'll just ask you if you can explain a little bit about your business. You each represent kind of a different type of player in this ecosystem. So just for people that may not be familiar with the Brazilian market, if you can say a little bit about your business and how you're using open finance to create value for your customers. What are the most interesting use cases you see specifically in the financial inclusion space and for traditionally underserved or excluded groups? Maybe we can start with Luana.
Okay, thank you very much for the invitation and the research. It's amazing, very nice. Congratulations for this work. So PicPay, it's a NuBank. In fact, we started 12 years ago as a digital wallet, and now we are a bank. So now we are a NuBank, and our main customers are low incomes. Okay, and talking about the open finance and the use case, I think that PicPay really believes that the low income customers deserves the same high quality, the same kind of products that all people. So we decided since the beginning to participate to open finance. As you show in the beginning, we were one of the first ones to start, and we really start huge because PicPay decided to buy Guia Bolso. So PicPay bought Guia Bolso. Guia Bolso is the first open finance business here in Brazil before the open finance regulated as we have now. So PicPay decided to enter since the beginning because we really believe in open finance to improve our products, to give this kind of quality for our public, for our customers. And so we started very fast and moved to a very nice use case that I really believe. As you show, we have the PFM, but now we don't have just the PFM. We did our wallet as an open finance wallet. So you don't need to go to the app and find the PFM or find a space when you have open finance, okay? If you enter in the PicPay app and you go in the wallet, that is a main part of the app, you have an open finance wallet. You can see the same things you can see as PicPay, as Itaú, NuBank, Caixa, Banco do Brasil, if you connect these accounts, of course. So I think this is the most interesting. And I think that we have this class C, D people, and we are seeing that they are using, because we believe that the financial education is a problem here in Brazil, and it's very difficult. Like, let me show now how is my finance. Nobody wants to do this. It's in the day by day. It's in the payments. You need to see where is your balance, where you have to pay, and we are facilitating this day by day financials.
Thank you, Lorena. That's very interesting to see the excitement for open finance from PicPay. Maybe we can go to Paulo now.
Okay. Hi, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here with you and talking not about open finance, but mainly about the client. The research, it's very, very nice and help us to understand the correct way that we need to go at open finance here in Brazil. So I'm working at Itaú. It is the one of largest bank in Latin America. We have 90 years old, very experienced with customer data, credit models, innovation, products. We have more than 6 million customers. And we see a great potential with open finance because we can creating agility for updating customer data, creating knowledge of customer financial behavior and life, because until now, before open finance, we all knew the financial cycle of data of the client. We don't know the life of the client. We don't know the behavior with the client with another account. And now we can concentrate that and know about and know more about the client and working in the moment that the client needs, in the right moment that the client needs, with personalizing products, personalizing services. I believe that this deeper customer understand allow us to create use a case that support financial inclusion and as Luana says, the financial education, because we need to improve the financial education here in Brazil. The PFM that Luana says, it is for me the mailing user cases here in Brazil, because we can now help the client how they can use your money, how can use better your money, and how this help us like a financial institution to make our business more security and can improve our business. And open finance help us to new institution too. We have opportunity. Gustavo can be talking a little bit more that, but we have new institution here at Open Finance and here in Brazil, because we have the ETP here, and this help us to change another clients that Itaú, it is the largest bank in Brazil, but Brazil it is a largest country, so it is not easy to take clients in another part of country. Your research said that. So when we put new institutions here to compete and open finance and actually to collaborate to create the open finance ecosystem, the client it is the most benefit for them.
Thank you, Paulo. Over to Gustavo.
Hey everyone, it's a great pleasure to be here with my colleagues Luana, Paulo, and Mateus, who we are always interacting in building open finance in Brazil, and also the colleagues on CGAP. It's been a pleasure to be a little part of the research, which turned out an amazing research covering several topics, not only about open finance, but the history of the regulation in Brazil that made open finance available and in a reach that could be implemented easier and with greater acceleration. It's been quite a journey. We think we are still on the first minutes here of the game, but it's already very gratifying to see the results showed in the research. I'm from Iniciador. We are one of the first payment initiation service providers in Brazil. We are in the top 5 payment initiators in volume of transactions, along with Itaú and PicPay, also NuBank and Mercado Pago, all of which are banks, either traditional or challenger neo banks, and we are the first that do it as a service. As open finance depends and relies on integrations and connections between every financial institution, bank, mutual cooperative here in Brazil, we provide these connections as a service for our customers, either regulated or not, and act as a hub through all the complexities of open finance. As Mateus also put, open finance, by experience, we've seen that it has to be driven by regulation. It has to have standards and has to be mandatory for at least part of the participants, so it can be effective. But it also creates an entry barrier for fintechs and new participants who want to create a business, who want to start a business using open finance or using financial services as a whole, because it's a process, a bureaucratic process, a regulated process that is important, that is necessary, but also requires more money and more planning from these companies. And our goal here is to provide a white label solution, so every company can start using open finance services, using open finance payments in their business without needing a license with the central bank. We act as we act with our license and our infrastructure. We see all the complexities between all these connections with every financial institution and the compliance with the regulator, and we provide it as a service for either new business or sometimes traditional business as well. And we see it as a way to democratize open finance to other companies who are still in the process of building their business, who are in the process of developing their products, and that sometimes are not, they don't want to be a financial institution, they don't want to be a payment institution, and they just want to provide a specific service for a niche, or it's just a small part of their business, is not their core business. So this is what we do in our company. There is a lot of technical issues with these connections, and they are part of the system, of the open finance system, and to be able to simplify them, and also the market support the regulator strategy of bringing open finance to everyone. It's been a great pleasure as well.
Thank you. And I think one thing that came out through all of your answers, but I'd like to highlight for people that may not be familiar with the Brazilian market, is how much all the different organizations are working together and engaging around this. These are companies that are competitors. They are and they are in these working groups together. They know each other. They're trying to solve the problems together. This is something that we've noticed speaking to people in the market, and we think it's probably one of the keys to the success is that engagement across the multiple organizations. So we know a lot of markets are looking at open finance. They're in the process of designing it, implementing it. So I want to turn the question to Mateus around, there are several design choices that you make in implementing an open finance scheme. So you'll have to define the roadmap, what comes first, who participates, what's the governance structure. So I want to ask Mateus if you can tell us a little bit more about how those choices were made in Brazil, what the impact on those choices has been.
Thanks for the question, Maria. We were lucky to have the previous experience of other jurisdictions that pioneered in the implementation of open banking, such as Europe, UK, and Australia. So we were able to learn from their experience, and we adopted things that worked well there, and we made some adjustments on other aspects that they were struggling a little bit with, and we tried to implement our model already, learning from their experience. Concerning our approach as the Central Bank of Brazil, we tried to be as transparent as possible in regard to the regulation. So as I think it was Ivo that mentioned in his presentation, there was a public consultation on a draft version of the regulation, and during the public consultation, we talked with many stakeholders before approving the final version of the regulation. So this has been really important. We tend to have several meetings, both with the associations that represent the institutions and also bilaterally with each institution when we feel the necessity. We also respond to their call on us as well. So this has been great, and it also relates a lot to what you were highlighting, Maria, which is what at least has been called the open finance community in Brazil. It is really important, and I think Luana, Paula, and Gustavo can talk more about this because they are actually part of this community. We are the regulators, so we stay a little bit separated, but the financial institutions, payment institutions, they are all helping each other with implementations, helping each other with questions that they have, helping new institutions with implementation. So this has been a great experience, and it's great to see them cooperating between themselves, even though they are competitors as well. So this is great for us. In terms of defining the roadmap, in the beginning, we were too optimistic about how fast the institutions were going to be able to implement all of these specifications. So we had to adjust the deadlines during the implementation process. Now, after some years, we are more aware of all the required steps it takes for the new specifications, and only small adjustments on the roadmap have been necessary. So we are all learning together, not only the institutions, but also the regulator. And the rules for participation, they were pretty straightforward. We knew that the biggest banks had to participate for the ecosystem to thrive. So this was kind of an easy decision that we made. Of course, it's not easy for the whole ecosystem, but I think it's something necessary. The design of the governance structure was also really complicated, and we had to change some of our first thoughts about it to adapt to the reality. We thought in the beginning that the governance structure was going to be able to self-regulate a lot. But considering the diversity of business models, the different characteristics of the participating institutions, so we are talking here about big banks, neobanks, small institutions, credit unions as well. So it's really hard to put everybody together and make them agree on some of the decisions. So the regulator is having to regulate not only general aspects, but also technical details of the open finance. But I think overall, we are being able to do a good job, and we can see the ecosystem evolving.
Thank you. Before we move with another question, I wanted to give the option if any of the other panelists want to comment on the point around the collaboration that Mateo said.
A few weeks ago, I sent a message to Paulo to talk about the structure of open finance in our business. It's not about the open finance, like the results or what's going on, but about how we manage our team, how we can improve. So this is very nice. It's just an example of the exchange that we do. Paulo and I, we are in different shares, different sides. I'm the fintechs, Paulo is in the big banks. So in fact, a lot of times we are against, not against, but we have different targets, and it's different. Our business are different. So in some points we are against, we don't have the same opinion, but in a lot of times we are talking about the structure, how can we improve a technical issue, or even when we have a problem, like we have the tickets, the bilateral tickets that we have to enter in the service desk to solve something. But we don't need to wait this. We have like this kind of approach, so we can get better our ecosystem very fast. This is very important and very nice. And
Yeah,
I'm
I think
seeing
that
a
is
lot
the
of
key.
people from this community here.
Yes, I think this is the key of success in open finance in Brazil, because we made a lot of mistakes, but we can manage it to adjust this with the community. We are open to talking, to cooperation, even we are competitors. I think that is the key. We're talking about our structures of open finance, because we start with separated teams, and we unite the teams and separated again, and technology and business separated, and we put again together again. We don't have a recipe to implement open finance. So when we're talking about other experience with a larger banks or fintechs or a new participants like Iniciador, it is important to we union that and try to make it the better recipe for that moment to implement open finance. And months ago, we don't have this structure. And WhatsApp group, it is the best tool to do this. It is a great tool to do this.
It's great, all the cooperations we have between the institutions. I think someone mentioned in one of the talks here in Brazil how the cultural aspect of the Brazilian society should be a little bit less informal, and how we communicate, sometimes excessive, but also with everybody here. It's also has been a strong factor in all this cooperation. And even though we have different business goals, and sometimes these business goals collide with what open finance is trying to implement, which is competitiveness and inclusion, sometimes we have different approaches to the same subjects, and it wasn't always like this, the cooperation that we see in the moment. When we started the first technical work groups that we had in open finance, there was a lot more diversion. And as Mateo said, I think the role of the central bank played a big positive impact in this cooperation and synergy between competing institutions, either being firm sometimes to say, we need this implemented and we expect it to be done sort of this way. And now all the institutions make it happen, either sometimes providing the forums and guiding the decisions that we make as a whole. I think the central bank, the regulators, and the people in the central bank played a big role in achieving this synchrony between the institutions as well. I think we've reached a level of maturity where we all talk to each other independently of being competitors or not, independently of our business goals being completely different. We have this interaction sometimes in the forums that are regulated, the working groups or the service desk, sometimes on WhatsApp, sometimes on real life where we gather to see each other and to exchange our experience as well. And
a lot of happy hours also.
yes. Yes, lunches, happy hours, events, they play a big part on building the community of open finance people and companies that are working with it here in Brazil.
Thank you. Let me shift gears a little bit, and I think most of what we discussed is very positive. So just any challenges that you still see going ahead. Maybe we can start with you, Gustavo.
Yes, not all products are mandatory for every institution. Sometimes we have in the data part of the data sharing part of the open finance, some institutions, the bigger ones, we call the tier 1 and tier 2 here, they're mandatory, and others they're voluntary. Also, there's a technological barrier. Most of these institutions, they weren't very 100% digital in their technical systems and information systems. So they're also adapting and evolving inside their companies before they can join open finance. There's the difficulty to get everyone on the same page so they can all participate and see value on open finance. I think regarding payments, there are also payments that are payments, it's a bit different because it is mandatory for every institution who has a transaction account to accept payments from being initiated. They don't have to offer payment initiation, but they have to be initiated. So this is also very good for the ecosystem. But new products from now on the payment side, such as direct debit on Pix, which we call Pix Automático, and other evolutions of payments such as variable recurring payments and account sweeping, as we've seen in Europe and the UK. They have sometimes more liability from one side or the other. Sometimes they require contracts, and these contracts sometimes they are regulated by the regulator. Sometimes they are defined between the institutions, and I think this the legal part of the ecosystem is something that we have to work still to get these products and these services easily to the customer and accelerate their time to market as well. The technical difficulties, I think we've reaching a more mature state. As I said, Pix is just one connection with the central bank. We have the immediate payments system in the central bank, while the payment initiation, you have to connect with each and every institution. And at first, it was difficult because not all of them are prepared. We have to create a standard. Sometimes the standard is a little bit adapted by everyone, so it can work in their systems. But now I think we've reached a maturity level where we're seeing these connections are working. There are also improvements to these connections, improvement to the standards, to the quality of the data that's being shared. It's all part of the process, but I think it's also reached a very good level of maturity at this moment.
Thank you. Luana or Paulo, do you want to share your view on challenges as a different type of player?
Yes, I can start here. I think that we need to simplify the structure, all things we need to do to be a participant. We already have very important neobanks or banks that are not part yet. at Open Finance, and I think that this is our mission as participants, as the ecosystem. So simplify. It's very expensive. We need a huge team. Here at PicPay, we have one of the biggest teams, Open Finance teams in Brazil, and so we know that is very expensive and hard, and I think that is very important to simplify, to have more participants, not the mandatories, of course, the volunteers. And I love it when you show here the concern rate, because it is a problem. I know that the public for fintechs are more digital. They are going to finish the journey better than other customers. This is okay, but I think it's not acceptable like to have fintechs with 60% of rate, and some, not all banks, because that one is average. It's okay to have 60 and 40, but it's not okay to have 20, as we have in some banks, to have this average of the big banks. So I think this is something that we need to improve, because is the customers is that they want to share the data, so they would do this. And another thing is the data quality. Ivo mentioned this here. When we launch our product, that is in the literate translation, the accounts of the accounts, when you see all the transactions for other banks, we really heard for our customers that, oh, my balance is not okay, it's missing a lot of transaction. This is not bad just for PicPay, of course that is bad, but it's bad for the Open Finance image. So I think this is a huge challenge that we have yet. It's much better, much better. Since the beginning, we really improved it a lot. All the participants help to regulate each other. We open tickets. Open Finance can see all the tickets we open to each other in the service desk. They act helping to improve this ecosystem, but I can say about these three things. So simplify, to be part of Open Finance, the concern rate, and the data quality.
Perfect. It is a good question, and I will reinforce some points here. It is important to note that Open Finance is the first decentralized project on large scale in financial system. Gustavo said, like we have in Pix a centralized structure, so Itaú only needs to connect to central bank system to use Pix, and it is one connection. In Open Finance, all participants needs to connection with all participants. And we are still learning how to deal with this end-to-end interconnection, because that generates several problems that we solve with our community. So this is the good news. Within the governance and implementation process, we are able to identify these points of failure, these points of problem, and improve that. We apply many adjustments at the API to resolve this problem. But this is a constant work because we need to have a more stable ecosystem to clients ensure that the ecosystem works. So this constant work we need, and we are working with that with central bank. So bank are also learning about that, and we are working to the dates and the deals with the scopes. But when we're thinking about clients, the clients are getting using the Open Finance and understand the concept of Open Finance, because Open Finance is not a service in itself. Pix is a service itself. Pix it is easier to understand. It is money being sent. Open Finance, it is the clients have doubts because the benefits it is not immediate. So the client give the concept and waiting the benefits in the next day, and sometimes it is not in the next day. Sometimes the banks need to process this at the system and make this to the client. So we need time to improve our systems to get that benefits to the client. But we see the demand growing. The clients are knowing the open finance, and they have to use open finance. We see that on the research. And we need to continue working on the experience, principal mailing, to become more comfortable to the client to use open finance, the concept journey, and we can make more and more products and services with open finance. We are on the way.
Thank you. Mateus, how about for you from the central bank perspective? What are the challenges that you still see? What are you concerned about? What are you watching for?
Well, this is a great question, Maria. There are several challenges on the regulator side. The participating institutions, they differ a lot between themselves, as I commented before, and we have to keep pushing the ecosystem forward while listening to everybody's complaints and trying to be reasonable, because we know that we wish that things could move faster, but we know now that sometimes it's just not possible. The institutions, they have their limitations. We as a regulator also have our limitations. And yeah, so this is a part, and we are learning how to deal with this. And sometimes we just know that we are not going to be able to please everyone. So an important example of this is the current discussion that is happening on the definitive governance structure, which means an evolution of the current governance structure into a more formal one. And we know that it's just impossible to please everyone. We were given an impossible task. So we are probably going to please no one. This is a part of the regulator. We are trying to balance decisions. We are trying to balance how each institution is feeling about the evolution of the ecosystem. Another big challenge is that the implementation of an open finance model requires a lot from the regulator's staff, as we can see, both in terms of time, but also in terms of expertise in a wide range of topics. So we have to maintain contact with people from all around the central bank, because the team responsible for the implementation of open finance, we cannot just know about everything that is discussed there. We are talking about the whole financial system. We are talking about the type of data. Sometimes we go to the technicalities of how institutions store their data and how it affects the construction of the APIs. So it's really technical sometimes, and sometimes it's extremely strategical. So it varies a lot. So we have to know how to deal with this. And actually, right now, it's kind of a bad timing, because we, as the regulator, we are facing a HR crisis right now. But I'm not going to elaborate a lot on that. Just a small comment. And another, in terms of risks, a risk that is concerning us the most right now is a topic that Luana mentioned, which is the difference in terms of performance between the participating institutions. And I'm going to be able to comment a little bit more on that later.
So I'll ask you, I think there's a lot of markets that are behind Brazil, right? Brazil is leading in this, and they have a chance to learn from your experience. So what is something that you would have wanted to know before? If you could give like one piece of advice for a company like yours, so for each of you, a company like yours from a different market, that's maybe where Brazil was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, what advice could you give from your experience? What is something that you wish you knew back then that you can now offer for others that are coming later?
I can start here. I'm going to talk as a fintech, so a small company, okay? And I know we don't have people left. I know it's hard. Make sure that I know, but I need is very, very important to be part since the beginning, since the when the rules are being discussed, because otherwise your interests are not going to be accomplished. Okay, so make sure that you are participant, that you are giving our point of view, guarantee the best experience, guarantee the quality. So this is one of the advices that I can have for the small companies, the fintechs, okay? And another one is to be volunteer, not in the construction, because you can construct this together with the regulator or wherever it was in that country, but also to be one of the first ones to be part and to put products in our app, because I think that this wow factor is very nice. We saw this here, and now we are seeing like increasing of access in the app for the ones who connect more than 2 accounts. It's very nice to see this increasing of access in our app. And we heard very good things about these customers that are using. They are doing the suggestions and insights we are giving, like here you have less interests, or it's better to get that product, even if it's not a PicPay product. Sometimes we do this, okay? And so I think that this is my 2 advice.
Thank you.
Good. I'm from Tauso, a largest bank, and open finance is not a threat; it is an opportunity. I think it's not easier for us to understand that, but it is. So Luana says it is important to invest in open finances at the beginning and participate on the construction of the API, of the experience of the services. It is important because open finance are changing our model of working, are changing our model to take off our clients. So since you understand that, you can learn that fast, and you can change your mind, and you can see open finance as an opportunity, as an opportunity. Collaborate at the community. It is important that, because it is an end-to-end connection, like I said. So if you have an opportunity to collaborate, not on the construction, but collaborate to solve problems, the ecosystems are stable faster, and you can learn about the ecosystem faster, and you can make your opportunity faster. And the last one, for the last bank, we know that we have a technical issues to get the data and to understand how can I receive the data and improve our models. So it is important to be open-minded and take opportunity for new models, for new opportunities to take our clients, change your experience, change your models. We have 99 years old, so we have a large experience with that, and we need to understand that, and sometimes we need to change. It is important that we survive until now with that, so keep that in your mind.
Thank you. That's great to hear that coming from a large bank, which we often see as initially very cautious. So great to see that after going through the process, your view is positive, and for others to hear that. Gustavo?
I couldn't agree more with my colleagues, especially if you are an infrastructure company or a PISP, as we say here in Portuguese, an ITP. But if you are a PISP or ISP, what we have in, I see the question on chat. In Brazil, every institution is an ISP, an account information service provider, and also the PISP. But we're an institution that was created by Open Finance. There was no payment initiator before Open Finance. So especially for these new institutions that were created by Open Finance and infrastructure institutions that are providing the technology and the connections through open finance, it is to participate in the construction of the ecosystem and the rules and everything that comprises the open finance. We have a small team compared to the other to the banks here, and we probably spend about 50% of our time of our team in building the ecosystem, because we needed to work, we needed to evolve so we can provide our services. Well, what we expect from our company is what we expect that is yet to be created by the open finance governance. So it is intrinsic. So you have to participate, you have to bring your point of view, because otherwise nobody will consider your point of view. Everybody is fighting for their business interests. So you have to bring yours to the table as well, and see ways that you can align your interests with the other parties as well. The alignment of incentives is what drives us forward with the guidance of the central bank. Something that I wish we knew before we started all of this. When you start a lot of new things, everything is very complex, and you start to make projections. Oh, open finance is going to do this, it's going to enable that. We always have a goal of what the president here of the central bank brings to the table as well, that the goal ultimately is to have a super app, something that can be integrated between all banks, the accounts, payments, and financial products. You can have it standardized and accessible anywhere you want. And that is a long-term goal. But if you're building infrastructure, if you're building PISP, you have to have your feet on the ground. Sometimes, as Matheus put, decisions will take longer than you expect. The maturity of the ecosystem, because of its complexity, because of its nature, it's gonna take longer than you expect. We're just reaching a point of maturity where we can see use cases being provided by open finance, because before it wasn't very stable, either for payments or for data sharing. And right now we reach a level of stability that we can see new use cases, and use cases that show value to the customers, to the users, so they can feel comfortable with what open finance is providing. So I think having your feet on the ground, knowing that it's a long-term commitment, and being part of this commitment, I think it's very important as a company, especially if you are a new participant, someone who is providing infrastructure, or being a payment initiator or account information service provider.
Thank you. We're running out of time. I want to make sure we get to the chat, but before we do that, I want to give Matheus a chance to give one piece of advice for another regulator. And then, Ivo, I'll go over to you for some of the chat questions.
Great, Maria. From the regulator's perspective, I have mentioned some of the lessons that we have learned on this journey so far, and I wish to highlight that the regulator must play a key role in the whole process, which involves participating in the governance structures discussions, but also in bilateral meetings, as I commented. The more talks we have with the different stakeholders, the more we can see the scenario as it is. Sometimes when you talk just to some, you don't get the big picture. The ecosystem must also agree on common standards, technical, referring to APIs, and security, referring to business, also in terms of data scope, referring also to user experience, and so on. So sometimes if an agreement cannot be reached, the regulator should interfere. We are talking here about many institutions talking with each other, having to develop systems that are going to enable them to talk with each other. So when we have different ways to implement the same thing, it creates problems. So we need to have common standards. This is mandatory, and sometimes the institutions cannot reach an agreement, and the regulator must interfere. And last but not least, we were talking before about the necessity of correcting the differences in performance levels between the institutions. And because of that, we are going to release in the coming weeks a regulation on the monitoring of the ecosystem. So this is something that we should have done in the past, but due to all of the complexities involved in the open finance and our limitations, we are only doing now, but this is something that ecosystem is really needing to correct these different levels of performance. And I think from a regulator perspective, a new regulator that is going to implement an open finance and open banking model, this should be really important. And also that the governance structure should have independent technical teams to help the implementation process and to help even the monitoring process.
Thank you. Ivo, over to you.
Thank you, Maria. So it's very hard to pick just a few questions in the limited time, but I'd like to thank everyone who asked questions and everyone who answered those questions. For those of you who don't know, there's a very rich discussion in the chat and you can refer to it because many questions have been answered. So I will just build on the theme of the benefits of open finance and how different use cases can bring more benefits both to the customers and the institutions. There was a question about the cost-benefit analysis. So anyone, if you want to speak a little bit about how you see the balance between the cost that is needed and how that cost changes over the time as you go through implementation versus the benefits that you get in exchange. I'm not directing it to anyone, so please feel free, just chime in.
I think we don't have this answer until now because open finance higher implementation here in Brazil, we have a scopes to be implemented this year and next year. So the costs to implementation it is high. The benefits we until now don't deliver that to the client in the maximum potential. So I think we need to wait in like a year to answer this question. When the scope is completed and we have more opportunity to talk about the client with a time that the client use open finance, not only use the concept, but use the benefits and services that provide the open finance will deliver. In my opinion, we are changing the ecosystem and we are created in Brazil in open finance system and we new services that now we don't think in, and I think in a month we will think in this new service. I don't know if Gustavo and Luana agree with me.
Paulo, it's right. It is exactly this. It's very hard to see and to calculate the results because at least here in PicPay, we are spreading out the data and all the business units are using these data. That's amazing to do better products, to improve our app, to do better notifications, to do better loans. So, but it's very difficult to say like this is it's better because of the open finance data, you know. So I think it's part of the company strategy. If it's, I'm not sure it's like this, you know, the costs and the results, the financial results. You are changing like us, we changed our app. So it's part of our app now. So I think it's a very strategic decision and it's very expensive. I think that as Gustavo said, we have a lot of opportunities with providers like Initiador and other ones. We have opportunities to simplify and to be less expensive to be part of open finance.
I agree. As also Paulo has put before, Pix is a product, but open finance is a toolbox on which you build other products. And we're just having it stable so we can build these products in the market. I think the many of the institutions, they also to better address their the open finance regulation, they have to address internal issues that they were having before. So they have to digitalize their platform, their APIs, their internal services, and open finance has been one of the main drivers for digitalization here in Brazil, along with the period that we just went through the pandemic, where everybody wanted more digital services as well. So I think those two drivers also have a huge impact and took a toll on the costs of open finance as well. And now we see, speaking of someone who's watching the banks here, and perhaps my colleagues can speak most, all of the banks, they're fighting for the principality. They want to be the main account and the main channel of their customers. They want to be their main financial providers. What open finance is transforming is that before, open principality was measured by the custody of the funds. So if I have my customer main account, then I'm their principal main financial provider. But now it's changing, not to the account, but to the channel. Because if you have the channel, you can sell your financial products to the customer. It doesn't matter if their funds are elsewhere. It doesn't matter if they have products hired on other institutions. But if you have the channel, you have the communication. And through this communication, you can sell your financial products. We've reached a point where financial management was only read. You can only see your data. Now you can see your data and move your money from all of the institutions from the same screen. So I think this is a big shift that will drive new use cases, will drive new products and a new strategy from financial institutions here in Brazil as well. And I'm very eager to see how we adopt. As Luana said, they've changed all their products to incorporate this because it's a new paradigm as well. And the most, we don't know who's going to win, if it's challenger banks, traditional banks, but we know that the consumer in the end is the one who wins. With Pix, we have a lot of new people included in the financial system here in Brazil, and now they have access to more products, and with open finance, cheaper products and individualized, personalized prices as well. So there's a bright future forward. New financial products that are going to be available because of this infrastructure that weren't available before, and the demand that we have is a lot. So it's a difficult question, but this is my context on all of it.
Thank you very much to all of you. Given the time, I will not go through other questions, but I would like to ask you, the panelists, if you can look at the chat. There are really interesting questions that would be worthwhile answering, and we will be posted the chat. They concern the supervision and enforcement of non-compliance. They concern licensing categories. There are questions about the infrastructure built in Brazil, and a few more. So if you can stay a little longer and just answer to those questions, we will be able to pose them later on. Otherwise, over to you, Maria.
And just to thank our panelists, especially for being open to sharing your experience, that helping others that are going through this journey. And thank you to everyone that joined, that participated in the chat. We'll share the recording for this. We'll also share the presentation we used. So just thank you everyone for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.